Okay, this is a start of a video series on how to make websites using HTML. And it might seem like that's, not a wise way to go. I'm actually going to explain to you why you absolutely want to do this and why it is absolutely much easier than doing it any other way. So I'm going to share a story with you without naming the companies, but and I'm going to leave out details that are not relevant. Not that I don't know them, but they're not relevant to the story. You don't need to know them. I understand that some listeners may know them, and so, but it isn't relevant to the story. So many years ago, countries were given domain extensions. Turkey was given TR, Canada was given CA, yada, 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 yada. And the idea was that you had to basically, it was like this sort of special thing. Instead of .com, you got, if you were in Canada, you got .ca. It was exclusive to that. And so every country got their extension. And some people decided that there was a country called Western Samoa that that had the extension .ws, and some people negotiated with this very small country that really didn't even have an internet presence or really a desire. It's an island. Um, and basically got them to sell the extension to them so that they could use it exclusively. And then they went out and they convinced people that WS stood for website and that WS was going to be bigger than .com. And they managed to convince a lot of people of this, and they were able to do that using an MLM model. It's amazing what you can get people to do and say when you use an MLM model. So they managed to convince a bunch of people that it meant WS meant website and that it was going to be the next big thing. And so people started signing up to be a part of this, and they bought their domains and started making their websites and doing all of this other stuff. And this went on for several years. And other big companies saw that they were able to and how do I know all this is what happened is because I actually had a client who was friends with the king of Western Samoa at the time that this was happening, and so that's how I knew what was going on, how it originally started. So the other big companies noticed that this group of people managed to convince people to pay far more for something than they were already paying, and sort of locking them into something that now of course it never did get anywhere near as big as it is, as they claimed, of course, because neither of those two guys are anybody that you've probably ever even heard of before, unless of course you're involved in the company that did it, the MLM company that did it. But they managed to convince a lot of people, and so this led other companies to go, holy crap, you're getting them to pay for all of these things. And I'll give you an example. If you were to buy a domain from them, I don't know the current rate, it doesn't really matter, but you're paying a monthly fee for that current rate. And then basically, if you were to get a domain name from someone else, even that domain, even a .ws website, because you can buy .ws websites from, say, GoDaddy or Namecheap or whatever. You can buy those from any of those services. You would be able to, you would only pay once a year. You'd be paying a very small amount of money, and it was yearly. Now, with this particular company, however, you paid more for a month than you did for a year anywhere else. And that wasn't the end of the story, or isn't the end of the story, as they say. The next thing that happened was they charged you for like every little thing. So at that price, you just got the domain, okay? And if you wanted to say forward the domain, then you had to pay for that. But if you were to forward a domain through anyone else, you wouldn't have to do that. So it was like everything that you normally got, you were just kind of like locked in there, and people were paying and still are, tremendous amounts of money, more than they needed to pay for these services. And why did this happen, and how was it able to occur and basically still go on today? Because they were taking advantage of people's ignorance, okay? Like snake oil salesmen, I guess you could say, because people didn't know. People didn't, and still today, many people have no clue about how things really work on the internet. And so they don't know that you don't have to do that. The internet's I've always said this, the internet's kind of like an onion, and there's people on all these different layers, okay? So they're targeting a particular layer that doesn't know about all the other layers that exist. You know what I'm saying? So their whole world revolves in this particular layer where you have to pay for forwarding. Okay? So, as a computer expert with over 2 decades experience, I float through all the layers. And so I, am able to know all of these different things that very few people actually know, all the layers and the things that go on within them. I don't go in the dark web though, because I'm not a freak, but I could if I wanted to, just choose not to. There are things that I can do but do not do, okay? Just because of my own personal choices. It has no interest to me, but it doesn't mean I don't know where it is or how to get there. And that's the case with these other people. They don't know the other layers exist, okay? So as these companies saw that, hey, once I get these people locked in, I can basically charge them whatever I want, because they don't know how to do anything else. And sure, they could learn and they could move all of this stuff, but human nature, people don't do that. Okay? People don't do that. It's just like people who still have AOL addresses. I mean, there's people that still have AOL addresses. AOL fell on its face like a decade and a half ago. But why do people still do that? Because when they got online, someone did it for them. And they don't know how to not use AOL. They don't know how to go somewhere else. Okay? And they're just so convinced, well, I have to keep AOL because whatever, they're locked in. They think they are. So now all these companies are like following this model, and they're offering, like with their web hosting, with their domains, they're offering web hosting, and they're offering site builders and all this other stuff. And it's like, it's just $1. Go ahead and try it. And it's literally like bait. It's like all of this stuff, the online, that's free or really, really cheap. It's just bait. It really is just bait. And when they get you, it's going to cost you a fortune. So a site builder locks you in to that hosting company forever. That means you're never, it doesn't matter who has the best rate in hosting, you're going to stay with that one because your whole website is tied to it. It doesn't matter if somebody comes out with a cheaper and better and more amazing site builder. You're going to stay with that crappy one. So they don't need to make their products better. They don't have to do anything competitive. They just need to catch you in that trap. Okay. So a lot of people are under and I actually was for a really long time because I'm not, how do you say this? I'm not a web designer by the definition. It's funny today. Everyone's an expert in everything, and nobody, to be honest with you, knows a damn thing. I look at these people who are supposedly computer experts, and I'm like, you don't know your butt from a hole in the ground, But everybody has these big titles. Like, I'll just give you an example. My hair salon, I went there, and the owner's daughter works for a TV station, and what she does, what the mother does is I'm going to tell you in the language, is güzellik Osman. Güzellik means beauty. It's the Osman thing that I want you to catch on to. Okay? So güzellik Osman. And so I asked what her daughter does at the TV station, and she says she's a social media Osman. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Literally. And they tried to explain it to me, and it was just like, that just sounds like a bunch of cockamamie BS. That just sounds like somebody paying you to do something just because you know how to use a computer and most people don't. But that's the point that I'm trying to make. So, a lot of people spend a lot of time wasting a lot of time listening to the wrong people. So, I did, when I was in school over 2 decades ago, I took everything that had anything to do with computers, anything, fixing them, programming them, networking them, whatever. I went to several schools and took every course that they had. Not because I wanted to do those things, but because I wanted to consult. And so I needed to know what I was talking about when I was telling other people what to do. So I learned programming. Well, and I learned different languages as part of that. And back then, programming was it was hard. It wasn't easy. You know what I mean? It was like you wrote stuff out and then it was like, practically ones and zeros. It wasn't ones and zeros, but it was like you had to write out everything. It was like you had to write out the code for every single thing. This was before what we have now. And so it was really, really difficult. Like if you made a mistake, you could have a period or a colon or something like that in there, and it would throw off your whole website. And you would have to just read through, just think of a bunch of words and just pages and pages of words that didn't make any sense at all. And you had to go through, scan every single character looking for that misplaced colon or whatever it was. That's how hard it was. So I didn't want to do anything like that, but I did need to know how to do it. So I could, when other people who were not as educated told me, I can't do that, I would go, yes, you can, you do it this way. So, so what ended up happening was I learned to program, but I didn't program. So I just assumed that these builders, even though it's a really bad idea, that these builders were much easier to use. But now, as I said, I'm trying to teach people to not rely on other people. So it's like, okay, I need to go learn how to program in HTML without using, any of the, like C++ or any of the other languages that I learned. And so I helped develop a system that allows people to make websites, but they need to be able to understand HTML. And you're seeing basically on the screen this sort of new type of social media where the owner owns the whole page except for like 5% of it. And that means that when you and it can have like tons of tabs, where when you compare that to Facebook, you just have one page that you can't you have one page that you don't really have any control over. You couldn't place banner ads on it, for example, if you wanted to. You can't, move things around. You couldn't, if you wanted to put, ad mobs on there or some other advertising network, you couldn't put that on there. But in this particular case, this works. So, I have a bunch of people who rely on me, who are wanting to do this. And so in order to train those people, I decided, okay, I need to go learn how to use HTML. And get rid of this. So I went and decided to try to use an HTML editor and make a website. And I tried a bunch of different things, and then finally just everything clicked, and I was like, oh my God, this is so much easier than using one of those website builders like Wix, for example. I used Wix before. I paid them lots of money for 2 years worth of service, and then they canceled my website, and which gave them my domain, which I bought through them, and all my money for 2 years, and wouldn't tell me why. So that's one of the things that can happen when you rely on a service like that. I lost everything, you know what I mean? And think if I had been doing that for a while and I had branded that domain name, well, I would just be up a creek without a paddle, which is happening to a lot of people with all the censorship that's going on the internet. So, and this is so much easier. So in the next video, I'm going to show you just how easy it is for you to be able to make a website all on your own, and and you're going to see why you're going to want to and all the benefits of doing that. And I'm going to show you just how easy it is. And it'll blow your mind. But you know what? You can make a lot of money when you know something that most people don't. So stay tuned.